Ahoy! Well, this is another action-packed episode of the bilge pump install, part 3. It may be the final one. So what have I got here? So there's the high water alarm, and so I screwed it onto the bulkhead here next to the mast so that I could reach it from the bilge. And I won't test it because you know how loud it is. And so I took the wire down through under the mast step and brought it out this little hole here. That was kind of fun. I had to kind of fish it through. And then I got the Tsunami Mark II down there, the Atwood Tsunami Mark II. And then here's the float switch, and that's supposed to go down there. And then the wires all get connected kind of in this area here, so that none of the connections are actually going to be down in the bilge. Now, the problem I'm having is that I don't really have a good way of securing this, or the pump really, down there, and I don't want to drill any holes, because this is the hull, and this little bulkhead doesn't really go down far enough. I don't know how clear that is. So I was kind of scratching my head about how do I secure those without drilling. I don't want to drill any holes, and my cordless drill doesn't fit down there anyway. And I went to the hardware store and I was looking for like a 90-degree elbow that I could hook into it to maybe drill into here, and figuring out different ways. But I think I found the solution. This is a Rubbermaid vanity wastebasket. That's just about the right size. I'm gonna have to cut it up and kind of reform it so it's to make kind of a liner that'll go down there, and that I can then use to clamp the I got some hose clamps that I can use to clamp both the float valve and the bilge pump to like the side of the basket here. After I cut the bottom out and cut the rim off, and probably cut holes in it and kind of form it so that it'll all fit down there, and it'll be nice and secure in there, and then that'll be what I'll attach the float valve and the bilge pump to. So that's my plan. Also, I mentioned I was going to simplify this plumbing, and I did. I took the old strainer out, which didn't even have a strainer basket in it, and so this hose goes back to the sump pump, which is back under the quarter berth. And so here's the switch. See, it turns it on, and then and look at that. It's a rule float switch, and it actually works. But what I can do is, suppose I've got all this and somehow it still fails. I can take the pickup for the sump, and see there's a screen on there which is why you probably don't need a strainer, and I can stick it down in there as like an emergency backup to pump out the bilge in case it should come to that. I don't really expect it to, but it's just nice to know that I have that as an option. All right, well, that's kind of a sidebar. So I'm going to do some surgery now on this wastebasket to make it so that I can secure my new bilge pump and my new float switch. So I'll be back. All right, so I cut the rim and the bottom off of that wastebasket. There's the label there. I basically just use these nippers and my trusty Swiss Army knife, and I stuck it. And look at that! I mean, it fits perfectly. Can I eyeball stuff or what? Well, I didn't totally eyeball it. I mean, I did measure it. You know, I measured. You know, this is basically 5 inches by 8 inches, and so I did have my tape measure at the hardware store, and I wandered around until I went over into the houseware section to find this, and look at that. It just fits in there perfectly. Now it is tapered at the bottom, and it kind of goes over the keel bolt there, but that's probably okay. I disconnected the bilge pump from the plumbing to kind of see how it would fit, and so I got to do some more. I got to do some more cutting, you know, to cut away for the hose, and of course I got to cut some little channels at the bottom there so that the water can flow freely. But I think the bottom of this pretty almost like fits in right against the bottom of the bilge there. So I got to do some more cutting, but I mean I could not have found anything that fits, but unless it wasn't tapered. Okay, so again, this is tapered, so it gets a little bit narrower at the bottom, but again, I think that's not going to be a problem, especially after I cut more channels through it and everything. It'll do the job very nicely, I think. Well, let's see if we can still see this in the dwindling light of the day. Ah, yes. The glories of high-density polyethylene. So this is what I've made. Kind of cut out. So I did some cutouts on the bottom to fit like one of the keel bolts, and then like the little feet for the pump, and then where the hose comes. And then there's the hose clamps. See, they kind of come on the outside there. It sits in the bilge like this. So, and I did, you know, I did a bunch of, you know, fittings, like putting stuff down in the bilge and seeing how it sat, and having it cut little bits of stuff away, and just get that through there. Oh, there we go. All right, so the pump goes in there. Okay. And then the float switch. The wires have to go along the. There, so the pump goes in there, and the float switch goes in there, and then I tighten up the screws, and I can adjust them with this little wrench. Where's my little wrench? Anyway. Alright, so here's what it looks like. So then all the wires come out the top, and I can, you know, connect them out of the bilge water, and that should hold everything in place. Here's some exterior detail. See, there's the slots, the little slits where the hose clamps come in and out. I drilled little holes. That's why I had the Makita out there. I drilled little holes at the end of the slots, because I was afraid that if I just cut little slits, you know, just cut them, that the ends of the slits would keep on, you know, ripping. And so with the holes, that should prevent them. It's kind of an engineering thing, like you do for it's why airplane windows don't have like sharp corners. you know, because if you remember the La Havilland comet, you know, why those things were crashing out of the sky. And I did similar things like with the corners. I took the drill bit and kind of ran it to kind of melt it, to kind of round off things so that there weren't any sharp corners that could continue to tear. So yeah, so there it is. Okay, so I got everything all hooked up. So I got it all wired into the bilge pump circuit. The happy green light tells me that everything is powered, and I have the alarm hooked up, and everything's all crimped and the fittings are all shrunk. So now I'm going to try to pour this full bucket of water in, and I think that should, you know, even though it'll start pumping, it should raise the level high enough to set off the alarm. So here we go. Here's my bucket, and we're gonna flood the bilge. Okay, so now the pump is on. Let me try to get the water level up. Oh, no, not quite. Not quite. Alright, I guess I'm going to have to get another bucket. Alright, I'm back with the second bucket. Like I said, I do have a capacious bilge. Ooh. Now I muted it, and that red light will stay on, telling me that the alarm is activated until the water gets down. Okay, there, and it's off now. So, and now the pump is going. Whew! My ears are ringing. Okay. Alrighty. I think she works. Now there's one more thing I have to do, and that I can't put this cover back on until I can cut some wood and like route out a little channel here for the wire. So I did borrow a Dremel one, so I'm going to try using that, but that's for another episode, maybe.